Tuesday, and I wasn't going to do a video today, but I felt like I should keep the momentum going so I don't lose the flow that I'm doing before my book comes out, or at least trying to do. And there's really not much more I can speak about besides albums that have been important to me over the last few years. A lot of these, well, some of them are from my childhood and teenage years, but a lot of them are from over the last 5 or 6 years or so. And I don't own these on vinyl, but I figured I'd still speak on these albums because they were pretty big in my life. They're kind of all over the place. There's some poppy stuff, classical, no wave, folky stuff, shoegaze. Like I'm trying to make it as diverse as possible in terms of genre and stuff. And there's no order to this. Like a lot of my book is just speaking of albums that I wanted to try to create music in the same vein. Like, and I didn't really know this artist. Like I knew the one radio song. I think this shows up a little better when I show it from my tablet. I did so many lists in my book, but I didn't do like my favorite pop albums because I don't think I could even list 10. I'd be listing like maybe old Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson stuff. If that's pop, I guess that's pop. Pop music is weird. I don't even know what it really pertains to sometimes. It's just music that can be on the radio and that's very commercially viable, I guess. I don't know if I've written any pop songs or pop albums. Probably not. Do I have commercial viability? I think so, but not in that usual commercial commercial radio 3 4 minute songs. Just poop it out like some genre mold that they do in a factory to just create songs in a mold. I don't think I'm like that, but who knows? Maybe I can at some point because I guess that's how you actually make money doing this. I haven't really learned how to make money from songwriting yet. But yeah, Kimbra's awesome. I don't want to talk about myself. I just want to talk about these artists. But I tend to go on tangents like this. So just bear with me, I guess. Kimbra is crazy talented. She produces like her own stuff. She works with a bunch of other artists. She can play guitar like really, really good. She plays other instruments. Her vocals are the most amazing thing in my opinion. I saw her sing on a video on YouTube, "Plain Gold Ring," I think it's called. I don't think that song's on this album, but her live performance of it just was crazy. Like, her vocals are just insanely powerful. I don't know where she's getting all that power from, man. But yeah, her voice is what really just made me fall in love with her music. This album is just fun though. Like it's poppy, upbeat, high energy songs. Carolina is probably my favorite one. But it's an album I could listen to all the way through, honestly, and there's nothing bad on it. And her other albums are very much in the same vein. Some of her newer stuff is more hip hop and beats, centered around beats and stuff. But yeah, it's cool how she's exploring other stuff. I respect that. And the real reason I talked about her first is because I wouldn't have been at this place right now. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. Somehow I found her Substack page, and that led me to create my own Substack page, share my songs, and share all my posts, which I'm still doing today. And even though I haven't had any financial success, it gave me an opportunity to share all my art somewhere. I didn't have to create my own website or anything. So Substack, I would recommend Substack to any artist who just wants to share their material. It's different than other social media, I guess, where you have unlimited space to share your thoughts and share your process, share your art. I share my visual art there for free. I share all my lyrics for free. My screenplays are all there. You could read them for free because the point of Substack for me is not to make money from subscribers. I have like no subscribers. The point of Substack to me is to put all my writing out to the ether, and hopefully somebody finds it somehow and wants to make these things, because that's my goal, is to make actual albums, to make to turn my screenplays into films and television series, whatever. That's my goal. I'm not looking to survive off of subscriptions to my Substack, because even though it would be nice to make an income off of that, I don't think I've really developed any networking skills to do stuff like that. But yeah, if it wasn't for the Kimbra thing, I don't think I would have written this book. So yeah, I owe her like a great deal of gratitude. And go check her out. If you were like me and you thought she was only like that one song, yeah, you're wrong. For so long, I just knew the Gautier song, that somebody that you used to know, whatever it's called, and it's a cool song. But once you dive deeply into her catalog, like, yeah, she's crazy talented. Um, I won't talk too long. I don't want to make this like over 40 minutes like I did the other day. Some people in my family liked him. They had like his poster on the wall. So he was always in my consciousness, you know, being from New Jersey, East Coast, well, anywhere in America. Springsteen, Madonna, and Michael Jackson pretty much owned the 1980s. Madonna, Michael Jackson, Springsteen, maybe they're the three biggest icons of the 80s. I'm probably missing somebody, but I like this album. I haven't heard every Springsteen album. This or Born to Run are probably my favorite ones, but I've never heard The River yet. I've never took like the complete deep dive of every album, but this one stuck with me because it was when I was like learning acoustic guitar and teaching myself acoustic chords. And this is pretty much very simple, minimal, no orchestration, no saxophone, no E Street Band stuff. It's just him with a 4 track playing like folk songs and stuff. And yeah, you're probably not gonna rock this at a party. It's very just meditative and reflective of his personal stuff. But yeah, the songs are great. The Highway Patrolman, Atlantic City. The Highway Patrolman is probably my favorite. That song just gets stuck in my head. I'll be walking somewhere and it just pops in my head all the time. And I think they made a whole movie based on that song. Like the storytelling is just so captivating. And I have an album called Scorn of the Nation, which is kind of a punk rock political themed album that I wrote maybe 10 years ago or so. Scorn of the Nation. And I didn't intend it to be like a carbon copy of Nebraska. But when I revisited it in 2022, for some reason I made that connection that it would be cool to make it like this album, just in terms of the rawness and the grit and stuff like that. That's kind of where I picture it now. It's kind of like my punk rock Nebraska album, but it's probably going to be kind of heavy, so maybe more in spirit than musicality. But yeah, this was a big album for me. I think a lot of people like this album, and yeah, it's not the Springsteen you want to rock at a party, but if you want to just get reflective and meditate on some of his more quiet songs and stuff, and his different side of songwriting, every song's good. This one I found a few years ago, and I think they're from the Pacific Northwest. Earth 2. The band's called Earth. Probably my most listened to album while I write anything. This or Glenn Branca's stuff because it's easier to work for me without lyrics. Lyrics kind of distract me when I'm writing or doing something, so I need stuff like this. Glenn Branca is perfect. There's another modern artist called Noveller, and she's kind of like the same thing with her guitar effects. Even Emma Ruth Rundle did like an electric guitar album like that. It's kind of like no wave stuff. It's all kind of connected to me as no wave albums. And even Swans, he does sing a lot, but you can zone out to Swans. Some of his songs are like 20 minutes long, like the Glowing Man album. But yeah, I would compare Earth 2, this album Earth 2 to no wave, just loud, minimalist, chaotic noise. Some people might listen to this for the first time and be like, "What the hell is this guy recommending to me?" It might take you some time to appreciate music like this because it's loud, it's kind of chaotic, and it's kind of noisy just for the sake of being noisy. And sometimes it'll drone and drone and drone for like 5 minutes, and you don't even know, like, is this going to change at any point? For some reason, that relaxes me. Like some other people might feel anxious because they're waiting for like the next movement to happen. To me, I just like to zone out to the drone and kind of picture where the music might go. Like it's pretty cool to me to have that different experience with music. I love this album, man. I could put this on in the morning, afternoon, night while I'm sleeping, and it just like kind of calms me down. It's weird. I said before I can't really meditate. I'm not good at that. I've tried to, but maybe my meditation is like listening to albums like this, like no wave albums that are so heavy and distorted that all my anxious thoughts just disappear because it's too loud in my head. The chaos of this music erases the chaos from my head. I would love to try to make stuff like this, but I have no experience. I haven't played an electric guitar in like 20 years. The only instrument I have is an acoustic guitar. And that's how I kind of compose everything. Every song I've ever written was from acoustic or just in my head, and I'll sing it into my phone or something. And I had a thought this morning. The video I made yesterday, I was talking critically about religious people being judgmental. And I was thinking about that. Maybe that's an unfair statement. And of course, non religious people can be just as judgmental as religious people. Um, of course, like I realize that being religious doesn't mean you're automatically setting out to judge other people. People are going to be like that whether they're religious or not religious. So I don't want to make it seem like I was being unfair or grouping religious people together like that. But these are the type of things that are tough to speak about because people will take it the wrong way. There's a reason people say don't speak about religion and politics because somebody's going to get offended, even if you don't really mean it like that, as a serious offense. And maybe it's easier to do in writing. When you write something like that, I can explain myself further. When I'm just making a mocking comment, it's a little bit more difficult. Maybe people don't realize the sense of humor that I'm trying to portray. Like, and sometimes people are just out to get you and they want to take your stuff out of context to make you feel some kind of guilt or shame, which is what I was trying to convey in my message yesterday. That there's people that do that. They weaponize language, they weaponize sexuality, they weaponize all these things that kind of put shame on other people. And yeah, I'm not about that. Like, but that could be religious people, non-religious people, just assholes in general. And I'll just close this little tangent. I felt like I had to get this out here because this album has no lyrics, so nothing in this album can be taken out of context. There's no lyrics. You can't. Well, that guitar distortion, that's very leftist. You can't make claims like that. Like that's why I want to make music like this or ambient music that's more ethereal stuff because you don't have to worry about people taking your stuff out of context and stuff. You don't have to psychoanalyze every word you put on paper. That's the cool part of making instrumental stuff. It removes all that other crazy nonsense from your head. And I guess that's all I really wanted to say. Maybe it's harder for religious people though, because religious people are claiming to speak for God. They think they're doing God's work. So there's almost like a natural judgmental quality to that. Like if you're claiming to speak for God or to be God's people or whatever your tribe claims, it makes a lot of it puts a burden on you. Like I don't think anyone should put that on themselves. Like why do people do that? I don't know. I think it just leads to narcissism, sanctimonious bullshit, and stuff like that. But again, it's not just religious people that do this stuff. I want to be fair there. There's plenty of non religious people or formerly religious people that they're just narcissistic naturally, whether they're religious or not. Like, God just happens to come along for the ride for people like that. And I don't know. I feel like I had to explain that more. When I woke up this morning, I was like, yeah, people are going to take that the wrong way, like I'm anti-religious or something. I'm just anti-groupthink in general. Like, I have a problem with that because I think it takes away your individuality and stuff. But I talk about this more. Hopefully, I talk about this more poetically in my book and in my lyrics and stuff because it is a major message from me, like to try to deal with the devil and the God raging inside of me, like the brand new album. I think that's a conflict everyone has, but it's tough when you go down these tangents because somebody is going to get offended by it or pretend to be offended by it. But it shouldn't prevent you from trying to explore these thoughts, I guess, is the main point here. I learned about this in high school, so thank you to my music teacher back in high school. I remember we had to buy like 10 cassettes of like the best classical works of all time. And it had all the normal people: Beethoven, Mozart, Liszt, Vivaldi, all the normal people that people like myself who aren't especially educated in classical music. I can just name people and pretend I'm somewhat educated, I guess. But this was the only album that stayed with me: Berlioz, Symphony Fantastique, Fantastic, whatever, however you want to pronounce it. And it's probably my favorite classical album. Whenever I went to thrift stores to collect vinyl, I would look for old copies of this because you would find them everywhere for $1, $2, and if you find them in good condition, it would make me very happy because these albums sound amazing. Classical music sounds great on vinyl if you find a clean copy, and I amassed like 300, 400 classical records. I didn't listen to all of them, but maybe half of them. I was getting into classical because I was collecting vinyl, which is another cool thing for the youth to do. If you collect vinyl, you're going to find plenty of classical records. Don't just pass them up because they sound really good on vinyl and they're usually cheap. You can find good copies if you really hunt for them. And you can learn about which copies from the 60s and the 50s were like the best recordings. I was getting all into that at some point. But Symphony Fantastique is my favorite. I had like 20 copies of this album because you would find them all the time, and different orchestras, different recordings of it, digital, analog, and It's like the first psychedelic album, I think. It's from early 1800s. I want to say 1830s, maybe. I just watched a video this morning about this, and it's a psychedelic, twisted symphony, man. It's about witchcraft. He's in he's in love with this one woman, and he's like obsessed with her in real life. So he wrote this whole thing about her, and it seemed like it was more of the more unique um, in terms of classical music. It was probably innovative because it used like a huge orchestra. It had some dark and twisted moments like that. Like there's like a march to the witches or something. It's called, and it's about like he's taking a trip. He like tries to overdose on opium or something. It's a trippy album, man. If it came out today, I guess it would be like rated R if they made this into a horror movie or something. Because there's a lot of crazy shit in it. But the music's fantastic, and I don't know anything else by him. I think maybe I had a few other albums of Berlioz with some other works he did, but this is the only one I really know. And I might have said this when I talked about Meatloaf. This is one of my favorite winter albums because you can escape to a different reality, and maybe it's an album that influenced my songwriting, even though I don't compose classical music, because there's these very quiet moments, and then it just goes and shocks people. And that was always cool to me, even when I was in high school. That's why I kind of was drawn to this because it's kind of like that bipolar type of music, like even Toxicity, System of a Down, how they get kind of bipolar with their music sometimes. So yeah, it's a pivotal album for me. I had to pick a classical album because I'm trying to appreciate as many genres as possible. Plus, maybe kids who don't think classical music is cool will look at this one because it is like a twisted psychedelic horror movie. Maybe some kids and teenagers will actually get interested in classical music from this. And yeah, I can't really say anything else. I'm not very educated on classical music at all. Like the class I took in high school, I don't remember any of it. But I appreciate that I had the opportunity to learn at least about certain composers and stuff because not everyone has that in their school system, which is why, yeah, art education is very important because you learn a music like this. I would have probably never learned a music like this. I was a stupid teenager listening to like Insane Clown Posse and stuff. And yeah, sometimes you need someone to just open up a different window. And yeah, I'm grateful for that. I had this on cassette, and it still gets me happy just to look at the album cover. I don't have it on vinyl. I'll, I plan to buy these all on vinyl someday. Gun to my head. What's your favorite album of all time, man? You have to say one album only. I would probably say Siamese Dream, man, because I heard this when I was like 13, 14. No idea what he was singing about, no idea what the themes were, but the music just kicked my ass. And it's still my favorite guitar album. Even if there was no lyrics, I would love this album. But I think his lyrics are really good. He explores some stuff that I like to explore. And I like other Smashing Pumpkins albums. I was always excited when they came out with something new, but this one holds a special place. Like the guitar sound, the textures, and just the orchestration, the songwriting. But it's mainly how the guitars sound to me. Like it's instantly just a special kind of guitar distortion that only happens on this album. Um, I have an album in my book called On Sundays I Like to Play God, and it's got 12 songs that are in the vein of this, very shoegazy, very guitar forward, and less lyrics. Like I just want to focus on the music on that album. And if I had millions of dollars in my bank account right now and I could do anything, I would take the next 3, 4 months and just record that album. Out of the 54 albums I currently have in my book, I would pick that one to try to make into an actual album. On Sundays, I like to play God because it's my favorite. Like overall, how I hear the songs in my head, and I'll try to do some on my acoustic, but it's supposed to be a shoegaze album with just crazy in your face guitar fuzz and um, yeah, it's probably my favorite out of the 54 because I hear it in my head. I'm like, man, I want to make this into an album with real music and stuff. Like, and it's because of Siamese Dream. It's not just this album, but this album led me to shoegaze, space rock, psychedelic rock, and acid rock, and all that other genre stuff, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, this is an important album for me. And I wish, like I said, I wish I kept my cassettes because it made me happy to just play that cassette when I was a kid and hear that guitar stuff when you're 13, 14. And yeah, everyone, I don't want to say everyone knows this album, but the younger generation, if you never heard this, go check it out. This is from the 80s, Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime. I maybe learned this from, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. The only Queensryche I knew was that one big MTV hit, Silent Lucidity or whatever. But this is hair metal. It's a concept like a movie, and it's the type of album that a lot of my albums also try to reflect. Like I want to write stories and make my album cinematic like that. You can make this into a movie like Pink Floyd The Wall. It's that same type of storyline about mind control and stuff like that that's just really captivating to me. It's a cool story. Like I'm not going to try to repeat it because I don't remember it completely, but there's some crazy stuff in it. I used to work as a beer vendor at Phillies games and Eagles games, and back in 2008, 9, I guess, when I started, I remember walking to Citizens Bank Park and like coming up with songs in my head about a waitress from Mars, and it was just a weird thing that popped in my head. And like I had one of those crappy flip phones, and I was singing "Waitress from Mars" like a hair metal song. And eventually, I wrote I think 10 songs to make my "Waitress from Mars" album. But if I had to compare it to anything, it would be this Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime. Hair metal's weird. Like this could be cheesy to some people because hair metal is kind of cheesy naturally, but they have cool solos, good guitar stuff. You know, 80s vocals, 80s hair metal vocalists are weird. Like Sebastian Bach's probably, I guess, the most well known in terms of just belting it out like from your butthole. Sebastian Bach might be the best. But you know, Axl Rose even 80s hair metal stuff. I'm not an expert in that either, but this is the album I would recommend if you want to get into 80s hair metal, but maybe you're a little put off by some of the weird stuff, some of the corniness. Check out this album, Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime. It was pretty popular. Like I never listened to this as a kid. Whenever this came out, 88 maybe, something like that. I didn't listen to this as a kid or a teenager. I didn't hear this album until I was like in my 30s, I guess. So I was late to this one, and yeah, it influenced my album Waitress from Mars, which is like the second one in my book, which I kind of talked about. I have a whole story. It could be a screenplay that I want to write someday about a waitress from Mars, but it's set up like a story like this, and it's all hair metal. Like every song is kind of based on hair metal, pretty much. My own interpretation of it. So yeah, check this album out. I still love it. This one I put back to back because this one also influenced my Waitress from Mars album, Electric Light Orchestra (ELO), and this is their Time album. I could have picked El Dorado. I have this on vinyl actually, but I'm too lazy to get the copy. I like ELO a lot. I have El Dorado. I have Time. Both of them I have on vinyl. They both sound really good on vinyl. This one influenced my Waitress from Mars album as well because there is a spacey atmosphere I wanted to create, and I like the way Jeff Lynne did this album and anyone else in that band. I know it's not just him. He's the only one I know by name, Jeff Lynne. But I kind of learned of this one late too. Like I never really listened to ELO until my 30s. There was a lot of classic stuff I never listened to until later in life, and everything I've heard from ELO I've liked. I don't think there's anything I haven't liked by them. The production on this is crazy. Twilight is one of my favorite songs of all time. If I could cover it, I would, but I don't think I could cover a song like that. It even has like a 1950s type of rock and roll feel mixed with the crazy spacey production. I don't think I'll attempt to cover anything from ELO unless I can make it into an acoustic ballady song somehow. Um, yes, I wanted to share these two back to back because my Waitress from Mars album was influenced by these two specifically. This is a female voice that I learned of a few years ago. She's Pakistani, and I believe her name is just pronounced Aruj Aftab. I had to pick this one because I have an album called The Vulture Prince, and it was just a weird coincidence, synchronicity, whatever you want to call it. My album, it was first called The Last Punjabi Prince, and it was like this punk rock concept that I had probably over 10 years ago. It was all punk songs. It was supposed to be like punk mixed with Indian music. I don't know. It was a weird concept. It didn't go anywhere, but I liked some of the songs. So when I went back to it in 2022, I totally uh, changed everything. It's almost more like no wave heaviness now. And I titled it, I didn't like the title, The Last Punjabi Prince. So I titled it The Vulture Prince. And I wrote a short story about the Vulture Prince. It's almost like a morality tale, which I plan to make into a children's book, if you can, believe that. But that's the type of story it is. Like it's about a prince who's very bad to his people. He's all greedy and whatever, and then some shit goes down, and he's in the desert and he finds a genie and whatever. I don't want to really tell the whole story now. And it was cool because it kind of showed how even if something you create, you go back to it and you think it's crap, which happens all the time for me. I'm like, what am I doing? A lot of my stuff that I go back to years ago, and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking back then? But I was able to turn it into something that I think was really valuable. So it became The Vulture Prince, the album that I made in 2022 from the last Punjabi Prince songs. I kind of totally revamped everything. And then months later, I found out that there was already an album called Vulture Prince by Aruj Aftab, and I didn't know who she was. Supposedly, she's like crazy popular and very well known in many. I think she's in New York, and even like Obama put like her on one of his playlists or something, and like she got really popular. She has a lot of other stuff as well, and yeah, I did fall in love with this album. It's very spiritual, meditative. Her voice will just like kind of hypnotize you. I don't think she needs to put any effects on her voice because it's just that natural, mystic beauty like that. And I just thought it was cool. I wrote an album. I titled it The Vulture Prince, and then I found out that there was another album called Vulture Prince, and now it's like one of my favorite albums. That's pretty weird that it happened like that. But I would recommend this to anybody. If you like very hypnotic music, you could kind of meditate to this. It's very soothing and just puts you in a happy place. So if you haven't heard of Aruj Aftab, you can check this out. She has a lot of other stuff too. And I was happy that I found out about her. Her album last year was really good, like 40 minutes. So I'm going longer than I thought I would go. And I'll do these kind of quickly, but I don't want to disrespect these albums because they're just as important to me. This is Dead Kennedys, Plastic Surgery Disasters. It's kind of a weird cover. Yeah, from the 80s, early 80s, I think. This is another album I didn't hear in my youth. I knew of the Dead Kennedys. I always got them confused with the Dead Milkmen. I never knew which one was which, but I never listened to an entire Dead Kennedys album until like a few years ago. They weren't part of my punk rock upbringing at all, but I became a big fan. This one probably hit me the hardest out of all their older stuff. I like this one the best. The Government Flu song hit me pretty hard. I like the way Jello Biafra sings. He did an album with the Melvins in 2004. I had to write this down because I wanted to talk about it too. Never breathe what you can't see. Never breathe what you can't see. It's Jello Biafra and the Melvins. I heard that album a couple years ago, and it instantly became like one of my favorite punk albums. Like after one listen, it was so good. And I don't know the Melvins that well either, but that album just totally kicked my ass. And I have an album in my book. Like the reason I picked these 10 albums, if I wasn't clear about this, they all influenced an album in my book. This one really influenced my album Grocery Store Assassins, which is my punk album, mainly dealing with my COVID experience. I made a punk album with like short punk songs like this. And if I had to compare it to another album, I said in my book, I'll compare it to this one, Dead Kennedys, Plastic Surgery Disasters. I started listening to punk rock when I was like 13, 14, but I don't think I listened to anything too radical. I didn't even know what anarchism was or anything until much later in life. It's very political stuff. If you don't like political stuff in your music, or then you probably won't like it, I guess. But everything's political, to be honest. I had the thought the other day because I was talking about no effects, and I was like, even though some people might not like their sense of humor, some comments they made, I've liked them since I was a teenager, so it's like hard for me to not keep liking them because I love their music. And I was like, well, what if I like Ted Nugent since I was like 11, 12, 13? I was like, what if I love Ted Nugent music? Would I still be a fan of his because he's so political and some of the things he says might cause some offense to some people? Can I separate that and just love Ted Nugent's music? But I probably, yeah. Like I'm not, I don't hate Ted Nugent music. I just don't know it as well. I didn't grow up with Ted Nugent, but he's like the one person I think of when I think of like right wing music. If you want to call No Effects left wing music, and it's like if I grew up loving Ted Nugent, Cat Scratch Fever is like the only song I know probably. No offense, I know he can like really shred. He's like crazy good at guitar. Would I still would I care about his politics? Could I put that aside and just love his music? I want to believe that yes, like I don't care as long as he's not saying like anything crazy, crazy. I guess like I don't know. I don't want to get into this whole conversation. Like it's more complex than this. I know, but just in general, like I guess this is coming up because this album is very political. It's very political, and oh, well, they're called the Dead Kennedys. Like, what do you expect? If you're buying a band called Dead Kennedys, you should probably be, you know, expect some offense to happen within that album. If you go to see a horror movie or a Tarantino movie and you get offended because there's bad language or violence, like yeah, no shit. If you go to a comedy club and you get offended at a joke or something, like, well, that's your fault for it. To me, that's how I look at it. Like, then don't go to a comedy club. Like, if one person gets offended by a joke, like everyone else has to be like, oh shit, now we have to go through this cycle of being offended. And that's how I kind of look at it now. If you're going to a comedy club, if you're going to a Tarantino movie, if you're going to listen to a Dead Kennedys album, you know, you can't get offended by anything. If you listen to gangster rap and you're like, I can't believe they're talking about guns and drugs and bitches, like, then don't listen to gangster rap. That's kind of how I look at it, like to be honest. Like, and there's a line somewhere where, yeah, maybe it gets a little weird at some point. Even in lyrics, music, it could get to a point. I don't know if anything will shock me. Like, words don't shock me personally. If somebody calls me something, I don't care what people call me. Like words do nothing to me. That I don't care what any you could say anything to me, literally anything, and I would not give a shit. Like some people have a different attitude towards words, and I don't know. I'm going off on a big tangent now. This is probably the longest video I'm making. So, the last one is the Doors. Strange Days, another awesome classic album cover. I love this album cover. I picked this album because like Jim Morrison, I speak about him a lot in my book. Like he just has that free spirit quality. He did consider himself a poet, which is different than me. I don't want to be a poet. Like whatever connotation there is to being a poet is like I'm a tortured soul. I already talked about this, but there's a weird quality to that. Like I think he actually enjoyed that quality. Like he read poetry, he wrote books of poetry, he did spoken word albums later and stuff. I don't see myself being like that type of artist at all. Um, I don't know. Maybe I can find a different blending of poetry, songwriting, lyrics, and just music and kind of blend it together to whatever I become later in life. I don't know, man. But I respect Jim Morrison. I respect the Doors musically, lyrically. Mm, I have an album called Smile Persuasions in my book. It's one of my later ones, and I was trying to beat Jim Morrison when I wrote this album. It sounds stupid, like I got man love for Jim Morrison, but I respect the dude lyrically. Like, yeah, he was into some weird stuff, like the shaman stuff and shit like that, which weirdly I kind of get into as well. There is like a Jim Morrison influence on me. How he went to the West Coast. I want to go to the West Coast. I don't think it's purely based on his life. A lot of people want to go to the West Coast, and but does the music still hold up? I think so. It's a weird type of band. Maybe um, it's led by the organ more than anything else, but the electric guitar parts are cool. I think the band is very talented, and regardless of Jim Morrison, I would still like the Doors because I like their music. But I think Jim Morrison added more of like a spiritual quality to their songs. Some of his lyrics are really good, but I don't want to make it sound like he's just some fake poet or something. I think he really was educated on poetry and stuff and committed to that lifestyle. I wish, what did he die mostly from alcohol? Like I said in my book, I wish he was more of a pothead than an alcoholic. If he was more of a pothead, he'd probably still be alive making music with Willie Nelson right now or some shit like that. I'm not recommending pot to, but you know what I mean. It's probably less bad for your body than alcohol. No one's going to the doctor's office getting a prescription for Captain Morgan or whiskey, but you do get prescriptions for marijuana. That's all I'm saying. Like, there's a medicinal quality to it. There's a reason, yeah, you go to the doctor, they're not writing you a prescription for like old granddaddy whiskey, but they might give you a prescription for marijuana. So I'm just saying, I'm not recommending drugs to people. I'm just saying. Anyway, I'm over like 50 minutes, man. But yeah, Jim Morrison, The Doors, the album I was about to talk about before I got distracted by my insane thoughts. Smile Persuasions was an album I came up with. I wrote the lyrics first, and then I tried to form songs from the lyrics. I tried to write the music afterwards, which is not how I do things. I usually just have all my music files saved, and I'll be like, well, the most important thing is to have good music. Once that's accomplished, at least I hope I accomplished that, then I can work on trying to get vocal melodies that sound cool to me. This time, Smile Persuasions, my album Smile Persuasions, I wanted to be like finding my inner Jim Morrison or inner poet for real, write lyrics and only lyrics, and then form the lyrics into music, doing it backwards than I usually do it. And I can notice it the way those songs sound to me. Other people probably won't know the difference, but it's kind of an interesting look at how I write songs and stuff. So I wanted to mention these 10. I didn't mean for this video to go this long. If you stayed with me this long, um, you know, hopefully you've learned something new. These albums are pretty well known. They're all major albums. Maybe Earth 2 is the only one that's kind of under the radar. I think Kimbra is pretty well known. Springsteen, Berlioz, Symphony Fantastique, Siamese Dreams, one of the best selling albums ever. Queensryche, ELO, everyone knows them. Aruj Aftab, if you don't know her, go check her out. Dead Kennedys, Jello Biafra stuff, and the Doors. I'm not saying anything obscure here. A lot of these artists are very popular, but it doesn't make their work any less valuable because they're popular or anything. But I think I'm going to cut it here because I went way too long than I usually do. I don't like to ramble, but this is just how my conversation goes when I'm speaking to myself, pretty much. And yeah, I enjoy just doing a stream of consciousness like this because I do genuinely love all these albums. They've all been big influences on me. I want to make these lists as diverse as possible, and I think I'm getting there to some degree to explore stuff that's from my youth, from my teenage years, from my 20s and 30s, from a few years ago. And yeah, it never ends. You're going to find something new today, tomorrow, and find something new to spark your imagination, spark your creativity. So that's it. If you made it this far, I hope you found something you can go listen to now.